Ever done is I had left here, and I kind of been inherited and adopted the system that we kind of from Mark D'Antonio when I first walked into Ohio State, and just kind of adapted the defensive system as we grew. And there were a lot of things that were very, very good. I mean, it's not that it wasn't good, but when Coach kind of challenged us to blow it up and restart for the first time in my career, without going someplace new, where all of a sudden you go someplace new and you go and you install a new defense, you got to start from ground zero. It had always been kind of just built up through, so it made me step back and say, okay, let's revamp everything, and we got to start from ground zero teaching them. So it was almost like I was going a new place, and it allowed me to grow incredibly as we kind of really just, not that we changed a ton, but we revamped and redesigned the defense for us, and had different objectives and different focal points. And that's the number one thing that, talking with the head coach, I said, okay, now if we're going to do this, what is it that your vision is as a head coach? And he put some things like, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. I want to challenge everything. I want to be on, okay. And it allowed us to revamp and really design who we are.
What were the main differences, I guess?
I think the ability to say, hey, his mindset was, look, I want to be aggressive. I want to challenge. And then, not that we didn't do that, but some of the things in the past, we would play a little bit softer. We would say, okay, hey, we're going to do this, and we're going to maybe give up a field side flat throw. And, we're going to, play deep to short. And, that bend but don't break sometimes, and be a pressure team, as opposed to being, hey, number one, we're going to challenge everything, we're going to be aggressive as hell, and we're not going to give anything easy. We want to try to suffocate offenses in everything we do, which means at times you're hanging yourself out. And you get one thrown over your head. His big thing to us, hey, if you get one thrown over your head, you get one thrown over your head. Let's go, keep moving on. Now, that always is the case, but in our mindset, it had to be something that was a little bit different in the way we approached our kids and how we were going to attack, us in a core philosophy of defense.
Do the players enjoy that approach?
When you start over, where did you got 130 places you can look, where did you go?
No, we kind of ourselves. I mean, to be honest with you, it was me, and that's when Chris Ash came in, and Kerry Coles, but we knew who we wanted to be, and we knew some ideas of what we wanted to be, but we just had to kind of make sure that we kind of brought everything back in. Everything had to be systematic in the approach to what you did. In the past, it'd be, okay, well, what's that front goal? What's 70? Well, why? Well, the evolution of from 4 years ago to here, as opposed to say, okay, boom, everything's got to be systematic, build upon itself, so that guys not only they don't have to memorize a bunch, they can really compartmentalize that this means this and this means this.
There weren't other schools?
No, I mean, again, we were going to be a press quarters team, so there was Michigan State, there was Oklahoma State, there was all those teams that were any press quarters. We went to the Ravens, that were a big quarters team. Now, obviously, the NFL is different. Talk with Dean Pease or some of those guys, just different people that had played quarters. Chris Ash had been a big quarters guy. They had played it at Wisconsin, even San Diego State, Iowa State. He was there. Different in their own right. And really, to me, that's the great thing about us is we've evolved to become who we are. And I don't know that there's anybody that's the same, but very similarities to a lot of things.
When you looked at Clemson's offense on tape, the one game they lost, they really struggled to run the ball, and they threw it 70 times. Do you expect they're going to try to establish?
72 times, I think. No, I think everybody believes and knows, and I'm sure they do the same way, is balance is the key to everything. It doesn't matter whether it's offense, defense, life in general. So the ability for them to be able to balance, the run and the throw is what makes them, to me, the best. If they become one-dimensional, whether it's just running or just throwing, I think that allows defenses to gang up on things like that and kind of put their focus on it. When their ability to have balance in what they do, it makes it much more difficult for us. So I don't perceive them saying, okay, hey, this is we're going to play this game like we did against Pitt and throw the ball 72 times, or we're going to play it like we did against Ohio State a few years ago and run it 55 times or whatever it was. I think that they believe in what they do and believe in who they are and what they've had success with, and I think the balance would be what they look for.
You guys have won a lot of games here in the Urban era, but it's not very common through the way you guys have recruited and built this team that you face teams that are equally as talented or close to as athletically gifted as your guys are naturally. When you play a team like this, Clemson, which might be the 10th time out of the 60 games that you've played a team that can match up with you athletically, how does that change your approach, if it does? And
I think the key is that you don't change a ton. I mean, you got to be who you are, and you got to believe in your guys, and you got to make sure that they have the confidence in it. And that's one of those things that's difficult. I mean, who are you? There's going to be some matchups that are going to be one-on-one shots. And we know that, and they know that. Now, do we have some change-ups? Yeah. But the ability for us to go out there and try to have to change what we do and what we've done and what has got us here, I think doesn't vote well for us. And not just because, hey, we're smart coaches and, we got to be able to change. We've got 35 days till this game is played and we got to do some things different. What does that do for your kids sometimes? If all of a sudden you say we got to start doing this for the corner because we're not sure, that doesn't vote well for the kid's confidence in what he does. We believe in him. And we look at him at times and say, hey, we can do what it is that we do because our corners can play. And we got to do what it is that we do, sometimes because our Sam Backer can eliminate some things outside of the field. So we know there has to be a balance. We know we've got to be able to have some change-ups. We've got to have some reliefs. But we believe in our guys, and we want to make sure they understand that we believe in them.
And one other thing, you guys have done a lot of interesting things with your defensive tackles. I think a lot of times you recruited very athletic ends and converted them and put some weight on them. Clemson has a few that are 300, 305 pounds, and kind of the way Hankins did, and you recruited them. And there's difference between the guys that you got and those types of guys. I was wondering what that difference is. Do each ones fit the system a little bit differently, and how come they're so rare to just come?
We would take them. We went after them. They're very good football players, and that, again, the game. This is an offensive line and defensive line driven program, and that's where the game's going to be won. I know we talk about the quarterbacks and the matchups out there on the outside and the ability to cover those guys, but the reality is that whoever wins those trenches, those big fellas up front, whether it's offensive line, defensive line, is going to be the true key to the football game. And it always will be. It always is. Again, now, they don't talk about it as much. And we've got ours. They've got theirs. Ours might be different. You're right. I mean, would we take a 335-pounder that can play inside? Yeah, we would. And maybe we would be a little bit different. But the reality is that we're going to find the best players, put them in the system, and then we're going to adapt even our system slightly to the things that our guys do.
You guys wanted Dexter Lawrence and, had him on an official visit. How rare is a body type like that, and what do you recall about his recruitment?
Again, I don't know a ton. I don't talk about it a ton. I know that they do have a guy at his high school, one of the coaches that played at Ohio State, so it was a connection that probably one of the bigger reasons why we were down there. But again, those are body types that are that's why you don't see them all over the place. And you got to go wherever you got to go, and that's the luxury we've got at Ohio State. If that guy's in North Carolina, if that guy's in Wake Forest, high school, whatever. I mean, we're going to go all over the place to try to find those guys because they are rare. But there's other ones out there too, and the ability for us to develop them is, I think, what sets us apart. The ability for Coach Marotti and those guys to take a guy that's 260 pounds out of high school and all of a sudden now he's a 295-pound three technique, and the development at Ohio State through Coach Marotti and everything that we do is second to none.
When you took over the program all those years ago, Elfline was one of the committed a couple of weeks later. Was he the first guy that committed?
There were two. He was one of the first ones, and then a kid from Glenville, and Devin Bogart. But Pat was one of those guys that that I thought was a huge deal for us. Guys that truly loved Ohio State, guys that were dying to be there, that really become the crux of your team. And that's what we can't lose focus. Whatever happens, Coach knows that. He'll continue to do that. Those guys from that 250-mile radius that bleed Ohio State, that have something a little bit different. They understand the rivalries. They've grown up around it. They've in the football systems of tough, hard-nosed football. When you still have those, and then you take the outsiders, whether they're from Florida, Texas, and they become us and who we are and who the Pat Elflines are. You can't bypass those guys, and Pat's been an incredible example of that.
And he's been there through the whole urban.
He's been there through everything.
Yeah, I mean, what have you seen? How has he epitomized what y'all have tried?
Well, he's had the ability to adapt, and when we say is change is inevitable, growth is optional, and for Pat to see leadership styles change, everything that you do around that has changed, and his ability to continue to grow, I think is what has helped him. He's always been a tough, hard-nosed kid. He was going to be successful. How successful would be determined, but his ability to be able to handle and grow through different leadership styles and changes in the tough, hard times, even Coach Meyer when he came in, as I think what the program is all about. Without guys like that, I'm not sure you'd be where you are. And I don't just mean that because you don't have the ability for those guys, those young guys coming in and realize that they've seen guys that had to adapt and change. Last year, like I said, Joshua Perry might not have been a first-round pick like Darren Lee, but he was the core of the team because because those guys respected him so much because he started down here. Those guys that come in and already start up here, they're great. You got to have them, and they're their first-round draft picks, but they aren't truly the heart and soul of your team. Elfline is the heart and soul of the team, the heart and soul of the program, and the way that he's been brought up and come up through it.
Did he start at the bottom? Or are you saying he started down low?
He started at the bottom. I mean, he wasn't a starter. He wasn't this. He wasn't that. He was in that first group that might have walked in and the head coach was like, this guy's not very big. I mean, really want he's just the kind of guys we want. And it's just when you question everything, his ability to grow through that. Obviously, he's earned the respect. And I think that's the thing. Those guys that have earned it have seen themselves grow. The guys have seen those freshmen that come in, they don't quite understand that. They always see him as on the pedestal. But those older guys that ultimately look at that guy and say, I know where he's come from.
Do you see any
Three
ways?
different guys simulating Deshaun at this point. At least three, maybe more. I don't know. How do you formulate a game plan to get your scout guys, the looks that you need, and the challenge maybe of this guy in particular?
Well, it is. Again, we're going to do the best, and the offense is going to do everything that possible to give us the opportunity to do that. So they bring down the wideouts for 8-10 minutes a day and just give us the best shots at go balls and different things like that against guys that can really run, guys that can go up and high point things. So our ability to put our guys in those situations against really, really good football players, I think is what's going to build their confidence. So when that ball does go up, we know it's going to be up. We know there's going to be 50-50 shots. The ability to go up and get it, you got to have the utmost confidence. And that's where we've changed. In the past, that ball went up, and most of the time, what does the DB think? Let me bat it down. Let me just stop this guy from catching it. Our guys' mentality has changed. When that ball goes up, they think, hey, that's my ball. So the ability to go up and get it and to continue to do that throughout this 12 practices hasn't changed.
How does that conversation work where you guys kind of figure out, because I think they mentioned Eric Glover-Williams was maybe running a little bit. You sit down and say, well, which guy can give us which look? How long?
Yeah, the head coach does. And the number one core value on a plan to win is play great defense. So that's not just play great defense. That's, as coach would tell you, that means a lot of things. That's offensively what they got to do to play great defense, defensively, special teams. But he knows that we have to play great defense to be successful. If that means taking the wideouts away from the offense for 10 minutes so that they can come down and do the things we need to do, they do it.
What do you remember about Raekwon's recruitment going up against Clemson?
Probably the last night where we were sitting in his home not realizing that there were some other people probably a couple miles away waiting to try to sneak in the house. But those are the things that sometimes we're best off not knowing. If we had known that, we probably would have not played it very well or something. But again, that's what makes some of these matchups and rivalries, that much more exciting. We say, well, what's the rivalry between Ohio State and Clemson? Well, there's a lot more of it because of why? Well, because of the recruiting. There's a lot of, we recruit against Clemson probably as much as anybody. Clemson now, just regionally, and the guys that you're going after, the people that you think would fit your program because of the way you run it, and as a family, as the things that your core values to what you believe in, I think there's more similar than people would think.
You've been around a long time. Has that grown or changed since you came to Columbus?
I think so. In the focus of how we recruited, and yeah. I think because of their success too. I'm sure it's because of Coach Sweeney and the way he runs the program. It's amazing that all of a sudden you start focusing yourself towards similar guys, and it's when I go recruit a guy, I can in a couple minutes, hours, whatever, figure out is this a kid that we think would be successful in our program because of the way we do things, the expectations we have, what we ask them to do on a daily basis. Some guys you meet him and you're like, he's a great player, but it just doesn't fit. We get him up here, he's not gonna love it, he's not gonna fit in. Not as a player, but just culturally. Sure. And I think that there's probably much more similarity than you think with the two, and that's why you naturally start recruiting against each other a lot more.
Thank you. Do you see anything in Sam Hubbard where you can see a concrete evidence of lacrosse having a carryover effect that is helpful in football?
I don't know enough about lacrosse to see a carryover. I'd be ignorant to sit here and say that I do because I don't know a whole lot about the sport other than when we recruited him, we didn't know what he would play.
You did not?
No. He actually went on a board as a tight end. I said we'd take him as a linebacker, but I thought the head coach kind of had to take him because there wasn't a spot for him, really.
Wow.
And I remember this. We had the little arguments about, well, I don't know if he can catch the ball. He's going to be a tight end. How's he going to catch the ball? And I just remember Coach Vrabel getting pissed and saying, catch the ball. He catches a ball going 70 miles an hour in a little basket. You don't think he has hand-eye coordination to catch a football? That resonated in my head, and that was one of those things that might have been one of those other steps that say, I don't know if he has ball skills, but I assure you that if he can catch that thing coming at that mile, at that speed, that he's got to have some hand-eye coordination.
A quick follow to that. Is there anything lamentable about the disappearance of the two-sport athlete? Is there something in the competitive realm that...
I like 2- and 3-sport athletes. I'm going to go through it right here with my change of where I'm going to be living in from Columbus, Ohio, where the schools are a little bit smaller, the private schools, the Catholic schools, to where my son's going to go to high school and be at a much larger high school. The ability to play 2 and 3 sports becomes almost obsolete. And so we're kind of in that realm right now that I want my kids playing. I want the guys we recruit playing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sitting here talking to a kid today, and what are you going to do this spring? Well, nothing, I'm just going to train and work out. Well, why not run track? You know, why not? Go compete. You don't need to get bigger and stronger and bulkier. We'll do that when you get to college. Go compete.
Wow.
You know, well, I don't want to get hurt. What do you mean? You could get hurt playing a pickup basketball game. You could get hurt training and flipping a tire over. Don't worry about those things. Let's go compete, continue to play, especially at a young age.
Luke,
Thank you.
we're similar age, so I'm not saying you're old. But are freshmen now different and in how than when you and I were in college?
No, I think what's different is the expectation. I know at a place like ours that we don't bring guys in any mindset to redshirt. Now, maybe a big guy, maybe an O lineman or a D lineman, just because of the nature of the game and the size and the power issue that they might. But the ability to bring them in and say, okay, hey, this guy's going to be a player in 2 years, and we're going to have to really try to make him grow and stuff. It's an instant world. And everything is about now, instant gratification. Hell, we're all impatient. I go into a sandwich shop, Subway or something, there's 4 people standing in line. What do? I turn around and walk out. I'm not waiting. And I think that's the mentality sometimes when these young guys come in that, you know, what are we waiting for? You know, no, we expect freshmen to come in and play. You know, and I think I think in my time, that's kind of what has changed a little bit. You don't look at a kid sometimes say, okay, what's his growth potential? How can we, you know, the Malik Hookers of the world? I mean, today, if Malik hadn't scored 34 points in that basketball game without making a jump shot and cut and weaved and stole, he wouldn't have taken him.
Does this team embody that mindset in terms of, I can't imagine a team 20 years ago having 16 new starters being where you guys are.
That's the thing about it now. You say, well, you guys are young. No, we're not. You can't use that anymore. Ohio State is going to be young every year. Why? Because they're going to have guys leave. And there's going to be a new guy that's got to come in. And if we continue to say, hey, well, he's a young kid, he's going to... No. When you walk in the door, you're 18 years old, you're expected, the expectation level is for you to act like a 22-year-old pro. That means go to class, take care of your body, do all these things like a pro at 18 years old. And that's where I've even had to grow, and I've seen the change and the ability for coach to put those expectations. Young men, they live up to what you expect of them. If you expect them to be a normal 18-year-old and make some stupid mistakes on High Street, guess what they do? They do that. But if you set those expectations that high, those ones that have that love and that passion for it, it's amazing how fast they grow.
Luke, I'm sorry if you were asked this, but do you have much relationship with Billy Davis, and how do you think he might fit in with the coaching staff and also the linebackers?
Billy's going to do a great job. Billy's been around all year. He's had the ability to get to know those guys. I mean, he's seen our culture. He's seen how we do things. It's not like he's new to the game, obviously, with all the years and experience. The only thing that Billy's going to have the toughest time, not tough time, but just the adapting is recruiting. You know, and what is recruiting? Recruiting is just socialization. Recruiting at Ohio State, recruiting is not nearly as tough because, I mean, look what you have to sell. You know, I mean, it's like going out down here on Scottsdale Street and being a Porsche dealer or something. I mean, it's not like you're pedaling and trying to pull. I mean, the people that are walking on that ladder are guys that, you know, are looking for the elite, the top of the line. So just the ability of a little bit of difference in that. Otherwise, football-wise, he's going to fit in great. He's, you know, the ability to get to know those guys and build the trust, to have that year around them and with them, or that 6 months around them and with them, it makes an incredible transition. And you're walking into a group of kids.
Luke, I know all...
Unbelievable. And I don't just mean that as football players, but I mean that as people, as understanding that they're going to accept somebody in and teach them some of their ways.
I know all losses are terrible, but The Michigan State loss, a couple of your players said that the Michigan State loss last year hurt more. They were more miserable than the Penn State loss this year. How do you feel about that? Does that resonate for you?
Well, I think the thing about that one is A, it was at home, and B, it's when it was. You know, when all of a sudden you had these expectations, and when you lose late, you pretty much knew that your dreams and goals had to change. And I think that they're not done. I mean, we could sit there that next week and say, hey, our dreams are still alive, our dreams are still alive. When in reality, when you lose in that situation, our dreams and goals probably were not still alive. When you lost to Penn State, crushing, awful, on the road, all those things, you can really look them in the face and say, your dreams and goals are still alive. You cannot allow yourself to slip back and feel sorry for yourself, because you still have everything that you planned on, everything that you visioned is still out there for you. And I think, again, with 18 to 22-year-olds, it's all about motivation. And the ability to keep that in front of them, that focus that they've had for the entire year, is what gave us the strength to continue to grow in what we had to do. The same thing happened against Virginia Tech. You lost early, but your dreams and your goals, not that we had those same, because we were building it, but your dreams and your goals were still alive.
How much of a part of it, though, is also that, I mean, seeing the success of your guys who graduated last year in the NFL on both sides of the ball. I mean, they're all playing well. I mean, that team was pretty spectacularly talented. I mean, does it hit that you're like, wow, that was a special team?
I don't take a whole lot of time to dwell upon the past, and just like with all this stuff that's going on, you know, the reflection that I don't take a whole lot of that. It is interesting to see. I think more back to the time when all of a sudden Joey Bosa hit the guy in the game last year and gets ejected, and my mindset was, oh my goodness, we just lost 2 All-American defensive linemen in the first quarter of the game. One was out before the game, one was out then. But the reflection of saying what we had, Darren Lee, everything happened so fast, you got to continue to move on. And, you know, what ifs don't really matter around here. We're going to be young, those guys are going to leave, and it's going to be that situation a lot.
Okay, we got to get Coach moving, guys. Thank you.
I'll follow you out.